from AECOM. AECOM is the helping Mass DCR, Department of Conservation and Recreation, with the design and permitting for the Abandoned Dams program, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. Also with me tonight from AECOM is JP Benoit, who's our hydrology and hydraulic engineer. And then also from Mass DCR, we have, Rob Lowell, Deputy Chief of Design and Engineering, and also Bill Saloma, Head of the Office of Dam Safety. So I have I think it's about a 30-minute presentation, so I'd like to ask if you could hold your questions to the end. I'll run through the slides, then we'll be happy to answer any questions when we get to this is being videotaped, as you can see in the back. So when we get to questions, we are going to ask, we'll pass around the mic and ask if you have a question that you have a mic when you ask your question, so that when it's recorded, we can hear what your question is as well as the answer. Okay, so this is the agenda of what we're going to talk about tonight. I'm going to go over a little bit of the project background, talk to you about explain to you about the evaluation approach that was used for Bird Pond Dam, as well as all the dams that are part of the Abandoned Dams program that Mass DCR Office of Dam Safety is implementing. As part of that, I'll talk about the Phase 2 investigation and analysis that we have done here at Bird Pond Dam. Also summarize work to date, talk about some supplemental alternatives analysis that we did after the initial Phase 2 evaluation and the conclusions of that. And then speak about the future conditions for what Mass DCR Office of Dam Safety sees as the most preferable path forward, along with some artist renderings of what that would look like. Also share some cost breakdown of a couple of the alternatives that we looked at, some ownership information, a quick snapshot of the permitting that would be required to implement the project, and then conclusions and next steps. So, as I mentioned, Bird Pond Dam is part of DCR's Abandoned Dams program. So this is a pilot program that DCR Office of Dam Safety has implemented because there are a number of dams throughout the state, including Bird Pond, that are essentially abandoned. There's no owner for one reason or another, and the reasons vary for each dam. But there are 6 dams that are in what DCR Office of Dam Safety is terming a pilot program. And the dams, as you can see here, are distributed throughout the state. Obviously, we're here to talk about Bird Pond here in Walpole today. Of the 6 dams, Bird Pond, I would say, is sort of number 3 in terms of how advanced it is. Lowe's Pond Dam in Oxford is actually, for that dam, the community elected to take ownership of the dam and implement repairs, and that project is going to go out to bid in about, actually, I think probably this week, and we'll go to construction soon. And then the second most advanced one is Bel Air Dam out in Pittsfield in the western part of the state. For that dam, the community elected to remove the dam, and that one is also advancing quite quickly through design and permitting, and should go to construction next year. But again, we're here to talk about Bird Pond tonight. So for Bird Pond, there's a path forward that DCR feels is the best path forward, but part of why we're here tonight is to gather input from the community. The 6 dams that are in the program, including Bird Pond, have been prioritized because they're the highest risk to the public. They're all significant or high hazard dams. They're all in unsafe or poor condition. So without an owner, nobody is looking after them. So DCR Office of Dam Safety has stepped in to evaluate all these dams and bring them into compliance with the dam safety regulations so that they are safe. This is the evaluation approach that we use for all of the dams, including Bird Pond Dam. There is some initial municipal outreach, which we did for Bird Pond, starting back in 2019. So we've been working on the dam evaluation and path forward for quite a while. There is a Phase 2 investigation and condition assessment done on the dams, which my next slide shows you what's involved with that. But for each of the dams, we basically looked at 3 alternatives. Repairing the dam, removing a dam or partially removing a dam so that it is no longer subject to dam safety regulations. So these three alternatives are meant to bring the dam into compliance with dam safety regulations, either through repair or removal, essentially, or breaching. Generally speaking, DCR Office of Dam Safety will only consider the repair alternative. And again, this is generally speaking, if the municipality is willing to take ownership and commitment to the dam to maintain it in the long term. In most cases, where there is no municipal interest in keeping the dam and watching after it, then the preferred alternative is to remove the dam. For either alternative, DCR implements the repairs prior to turnover or will remove the dam and covers the cost of all the design and permitting and construction. So as I mentioned, one of the first things that was done back in 2019 and 2020 was a phase 2 investigation and an initial alternatives analysis. So as part of this, we came out, looked at the dam, we assessed its condition, we did some topographic and bathymetric surveys, we conducted some borings, some soil evaluation, an evaluation of the adequacy of the dam to pass the spillway design flood, which is required for the dam to be safe and in conformance with dam safety regulations, evaluated seepage and stability, and then again looked at those alternatives that I just mentioned. So I'm sure all of you who are here tonight are aware of where Bird Pond Dam is, but it's here in Walpole, west of Route 1, and one of the notable things about this dam is that it has it impounds water along the Neponset River. It has a very large watershed upstream, large drainage area, 25.4 square miles, which is, again, significant. These show a few photos of the existing condition of the dam. It's a combined earth and embankment, stone masonry, and concrete structure. It is an intermediate size, high hazard dam potential classification. Our phase 2 assessment did determine it was in an unsafe condition. Over the years, there have been issues noted with seepage through the dam, which is not how you want a dam to work. When there's seepage, it means that it could be affecting the structural stability of the dam, and also trespassers. And as I'll show you in a minute, and as I'm sure many of you are aware, there are some businesses and infrastructure immediately downstream of the dam, and that makes this dam unique, I would say, because of the proximity of those businesses and infrastructure immediately downstream. And again, I'll show you a figure in a minute, but there is a spillway channel and culvert below the buildings, and that culvert has a limited capacity. It can only convey storm flows up to the 100-year storm event, and beyond that, the capacity of the culvert is overwhelmed. So this summarizes the work we've done to date. Again, like I mentioned, we conducted the phase 2 investigation between 2019 and 2020. In 2020, there were some seepage concerns noted after a large December rain event, which heightened some concern about the dam stability. And also in 2020, there were some public safety concerns due to spring trespassing. So as a result, DCR installed a fence to limit public access. So again, the observations in 2020 are shown here to demonstrate that DCR is looking after the dam right now, the Office of Dam Safety. So it's not like nobody's looking after it. DCR periodically goes out and inspects it, and when there are things of concern, we'll implement the immediate measures needed to address those concerns. In 2021, we did a 30% preliminary design report looking at what repairs would be needed to the dam to bring it into compliance with dam safety. Those repairs would require rehabilitating the spillway and armoring the dam because even when repaired, the spillway design flood, which for this site is a very large storm event, more than a 500-year flood, the spillway design flood would overtop the top of the dam. So the dam has to be reinforced to be stable under those conditions. And the repairs would also address seepage. There are a couple of alternatives that we looked at. Then in 2022, we did some additional sediment sampling and characterization. We came in front of the Conservation Commission for that. sampling because for a lot of these dam removal projects, the sediment management can be a big driver of the cost. So we wanted to have a better idea of what was present, if anything, for contamination in the sediment upstream of the dam. And then last year we conducted some supplemental alternatives analyses to look at how, if the dam were removed, how that would affect downstream flood protection. We also looked at a whole range of alternatives, lowering the dam basically by a few scenarios between 1, 2, and 3 feet, and then completely removing the spillway, which essentially removes the impoundment and reduces the water upstream to just the thread of the stream of the Neponset River. So the results of the sediment sampling were that actually, reassuringly, we did not find a lot of contamination in the sediment upstream. So that was a big plus. There were a couple of exceedances for standards for lead that may require notification under the Massachusetts Contingency Program plan, but that requires some additional analysis. But overall, the results were really encouraging compared to some other dams that we've looked at, that the sediment could be easily managed and perhaps even left in place. And again, right now, the sediment that's there, when it's below the water, it's not even subject to MCP reporting requirements. When the dam was lowered and the sediment becomes soil, the MCP would kick in. But even with that kicking in, we found that there were really not any significant issues that would be a concern for the design of any alternative moving forward. Okay, this structure, I should have asked if there was a pointer, but just to orient, can you guys see my mouse? Oh yeah, you can, okay. So again, many of you might be familiar with the infrastructure that's present, but just to orient you, here's the dam. Here are the buildings that I mentioned that are downstream of the dam. You can't see the mouse?
No, it's not. Oh, there it is. You have to move, keep the arrow.
Okay, so I can't really see the screen from my angle, but the dam is right here. These are the buildings, the infrastructure downstream. And then there are 2 locations that we evaluated for flood risk. One is location 1, which is this red star, which is right on top of the dam. And then the blue star, location 2, which is downstream of the dam in the parking lot between the buildings. And again, so the Neponset River, the bird pond is up here. No, you can't see mine. There it is. Bird pond is up here. The Neponset River flows this way. This is the Washington Street Bridge. And again, underneath these buildings is a culvert. So the water from Bird Pond flows through the spillway into the culvert that goes under these buildings and comes out into this ponded area upstream of Washington Street, and then it flows under the Washington Street Arch Bridge and continues downstream. Okay, so this is a summary of the alternatives that we looked at. But again, we looked at so many different alternatives, evaluating what would be the best approach for managing the dam in the future. And to do, one of the things we did was we looked at the flood risk at those 2 locations on that last figure. So looking at the flood risk if someone were essentially standing right on top of the dam and also downstream of the dam. And so we used the methodology shown here, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation Identification of Hazards methodology. This looks at both flooding depth and velocity. So if you have 3 feet of water, just as an example, if you have 3 feet of water and it's still, or that's less of a risk than if you have 3 feet of water that's moving. And so that's what both the depth and the velocity are important. And this methodology classifies flood risk to pedestrians in either low danger, high danger, or sort of an iffy judgment zone based on the predicted depth of water as well as the velocity of that water during a flood event. This is a snapshot that summarizes some of the results. There's a lot of numbers on this slide, which we're not going to go over all of them, and I don't want you to feel overwhelmed, but the important thing here on this slide is that if there's no color, that's good. red is bad, and yellow is in that judgment zone. So it's not great, it's not nothing, and it's heading towards potentially an area that we don't want to expose pedestrians to. So the other important things to look at here on this slide are that the top row shows existing conditions, and we have, again, this side of the chart shows location 1. So this is right on top of the dam, and this right-hand half of the chart shows location 2, which is in the parking lot downstream of the dam. Under existing conditions, there is no overtopping of the dam except for the 500-year flood. So during the 500-year flood, there's 1.3 feet of water on top of the dam during existing conditions. And then when looking downstream, there's also flooding downstream at the depths shown here. And at the 500 flood, not only is there 4 feet of water, but it's moving at enough velocity that it passes the bar into that higher danger zone. So again, that's something we really would prefer not to have be the case. When we looked at breaching the dam, which is essentially removing most of the dam infrastructure, you can see that the situation got worse. We have more red, and we have now some flooding conditions for existing, downstream of the dam and on top of the dam, but in both cases, we have more feet of water. So we have more flooding, and also it's moving faster. You can see that because there's more red. The other other alternative that we looked at that's summarized in the bottom row is total spillway removal. So this is what I mentioned, essentially would lower the water elevation of the existing pond so that it would essentially be just the stream channel of the Neponset River. And you can see on this chart that first of all, it would improve flooding conditions on top of the dam for the 500-year flood, because under existing conditions, we have 1.3 feet of water on top of the dam, and with the spillway removal, we have 0. It's also improved conditions downstream. We still have some depths of water downstream of the dam in the parking lot at location 2, but we have reduced the risk because the depth of water for the 500-year flood, because the depth of water has gone down a little bit, and it's also not moving as swiftly. So the message on this slide is that essentially removing the dam or breaching it and removing most of the infrastructure really does not seem like a good option here because it's going to increase flood risk. The existing dam is providing flood protection to the businesses downstream. But if we were to remove the spillway and operate what would essentially be a dry dam, and I have some photos and some renderings in a second that I'll share with you that illustrate what that would look like, we are improving flood risk compared to existing conditions. This slide sort of summarizes a lot of what I was just discussing. There are a lot of hydraulic limitations at this site. Again, that undersized culvert that flows under the existing occupied buildings has limited capacity. There's a very large watershed that drains to this area, so we have a lot of water to deal with at this location. There is the development immediately downstream that is protected during flood events by the presence of the dam. There is also a backwater from the Washington Street Bridge, the Arch Bridge, so that structure is also serving to back up water during some storm events, which complicates what we can do to improve conditions at the site. So our conclusions from this 2023 supplemental alternatives analysis, it would be that DCR's preference and the path forward that they think is the most prudent from a flood risk protection standpoint would be that the embankment should remain to reduce flood risk immediately downstream. Operating essentially a dry pool reduces risk to the greatest extent possible compared to every other alternative that we looked at. And there'd also be operating what would essentially be a dry dam. So most of the dam structure would still be there. There'd again just be a stream flowing through it. Would eliminate any concern that under just like any sunny day, the dam could fail because there'd be no permanent impoundment putting pressures on the dam. So those were our conclusions last fall. We met with the select board last November and basically summarized this information and brought it to the attention of the select board and asked for their input. Again, as I said at the beginning, the DCR Office of Dam Safety's goal in this abandoned dams program is really to partner with the municipality and the stakeholders. So, you know, they're not here to just say, you know, this is absolutely what will happen. We're looking to work with the municipality, as we did in the other two examples I gave at the beginning that are more advanced than Bird Pond. But still, again, spillway removal appears to offer more benefits than the other alternatives, as summarized here. But even with removing the spillway, the dam would still be overtopped during, again, a very, very big storm, so more than a 500-year storm, what we call the spillway design flood. So because of that, there would still need to be repairs made to make the dam, to address the seepage and make the dam stable in the event that it was overtopped. So now I'm going to show you a few figures illustrating our concept of what the area would look like if the spillway were removed. So right now, obviously there's a pond upstream of the dam. So this figure showed here, if you can see this is the dam right here. So right now, so what this is showing is you can see this blue line is the stream channel, the Neponset River channel essentially. So, you know, under current conditions, the whole area that's green is flooded. You know, it would be represented as blue, as having water. But under the spillway removal alternative, the blue would be reduced just to a river channel, and then both sides would be restored as a vegetated floodplain. So it looks something like this. Get my mouse to work. Oh, okay, and then this slide just shows, so as a result of doing that, what I just said, removing a spillway and reducing the water to a stream channel, there would be a change in wetland resources areas present on the site. So this shows the anticipated future wetland resource areas. The blue would be, you can see, hopefully you can see my mouse. No, oops, shoot. Where did my mouse go?
At the top of the screen.
Do we see it now? There it is, okay. So this blue would be the future stream channel that would be regulated as land underwater. The yellow is the floodplain. The 100-year floodplain would actually decrease in extent if the spillway were removed. And then the green would be, and then outside of the stream channel, we don't anticipate that there would be hydrology sufficient to support wetland, quote unquote wetland vegetation or a bordering vegetated wetland. So it would essentially be upland above the top of the bank. So the other resource area that would be present would be riverfront, which is shown with this green line on either side. So again, this is just our initial concept. If we go forward with this, we have a lot more design and refinement, but this gives you an idea. And then the next slide. Okay, so I have 4 artist renderings that I'm going to show you. This summarizes what all the views are. We have, forget what order they're in, but we have, I think the first view is looking across the pond, looking north, so standing on the, here's the north arrow over here. I can't see my mouse is not really in sync. Oh, there we go. Well, okay. The north arrow is right here. Okay. So the first, there's a view looking across the pond, looking north, one looking southeast from the north side of the pond, one standing at the dam looking upstream, and then a view from this, this would be what, the southeast corner looking north. So I'm going to share those now. So here, oh, this is the first one, existing view from the dam looking upstream. So this is the view under current conditions. And based on our artist rendering, this is what we think it would look like with the spillway removed. So again, you'd have the river channel, restored vegetation on either side, which would be floodplain. So it would generally be, most of the time, it would be dry, but during a storm event, it would flood. The water would leave the banks of the stream, and cover the area that is shown vegetated with shrubs. Okay, here's the next one. So this is looking across the pond, looking north. So this is standing at the southeast corner, looking north. This is the existing view. And again, this is what we would envision in the future with the restored river channel, vegetated on either side. Down here would be the restored dam, which would be covered with low grass that would have to be mowed occasionally. The stream would flow through the dam, through an area that would be reinforced, and then there would be a 20-foot strip at the base of the dam where we don't want to have any vegetation growing. Here's the next view looking southeast. So, and then this is that view in the future under the spillway removal alternative. And then here is a view at the top of the dam looking north. This is existing conditions. And again, this would be our vision for the future with a repaired dam covered with grass, mowed, and a 20-foot strip with only grass and then vegetation beyond that. Okay, so this is just a comparison of the dam repair and the dam repair with the spillway removal costs. I just wanted to show this to illustrate, again, it's probably easier since I don't have a pointer. If we were to just repair it, and these are a little bit outdated, but again, it's just to provide an apples to apples comparison. But this is just to illustrate that if Office of Dam Safety were simply to come in and repair the dam, the cost would be just under $4 million. Repairing the dam with the spillway removal costs more, but so DCR Office of Dam Safety is not just putting forward, what they think is what is the cheapest alternative. They're recommending what they and we feel is the best alternative for future management of the dam. This is just a snapshot of the dam ownership. The dam structure itself is on its own little parcel, owned by somebody who has never been identified, so that's why it's an abandoned dam. Lloyd Marded has never been able to be located. The embankment on the downstream side and some of the retaining walls are on parcel 2B, which is owned by the Hogan Family Realty Trust. And then the impoundment is a privately owned parcel. It had been owned by LA Trust, and our understanding is that it either has been sold or is in the process of being purchased by Wall Street Development Corp., but it is a separate parcel, privately owned. If we were to move forward with design and permitting, this slide lists all the permits that would be needed. I'm not going to read through them all. They're here if you'd like to read them. And also, I should say the presentation is going to be available after tonight on the DCR website. But this slide is just meant to illustrate that there's a lot of permitting we have to go through. So that whatever we move forward with, this project is not going to happen overnight. We're a couple of years away from actually implementing something. So these are our conclusions. Again, the dam reduces the risk of flood impacts to downstream businesses and infrastructure, but spillway removal is preferred because it allows a dry dam to be operated, which reduces flood risk and offers some incremental protection. If this alternative went forward, DCR would fund the design, the permitting, and the construction, and they would issue the construction contract and oversee the construction. Again, as I mentioned, we have not moved forward beyond concepts really at this point because we need to make sure that the municipality is on board with this alternative. And again, as mentioned at the beginning, ideally the municipality takes ownership of the dam itself, not the impoundment parcel, but the dam, and takes responsibility for maintaining the dam in the future. But again, we're here working with the town select board and here tonight with stakeholders to get input on, from what other people's thoughts are. So our next steps, obviously we're here tonight at the public meeting. We are, as Jim Johnson mentioned at the beginning, scheduled to go back and meet with the select board again in early October. The goal after that October 8th meeting would be to reach consensus on the selected alternatives so that we can move forward. Again, the dam is not in a safe condition right now, and if Office of Dam Safety does not do something, nobody else will. So, we're anxious to move the project forward to improve safety. And DCR, again, would fund and implement the repair, design, permitting, and construction. There'd likely be some additional field data collection that needs to happen to advance the design. There'd be a lot of permitting, including the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, NEPA process. During the design and permitting, there'd be continued outreach with the public and collaboration with the town of Walpole in general. And eventually we would move to final design and then bidding and construction. But like I said, we're probably a few years away from that. And that's it. That's the presentation. So we're happy to take questions now. And like I said, we're going to just ask for the benefit of the recording that people take the microphone. It'd be helpful if you stated your name and if you know what your question or comment is. Do you want to say something?
No, I was going to.
Okay, that'd be great.
Thank you. My name is Steve Hearn. For those of us who don't have a lot of dam knowledge in this room, can you explain to us what a spillway is and how it functions? And can you explain to us what a dry dam is and how it functions?
I'm going to take a stab at that.
Yes. The spillway essentially allow the flood flow to go through the structure, and it's a safe passage for the water when you have a flood coming upstream. By regulation, the spillway is designed depending on the hazard downstream of the dam, the danger to the public, infrastructure, and everything downstream of the. So, for a dam in the middle of countryside where there is low danger of to the public or to infrastructure, the dam could be classified as low hazard. In this particular case, it's high hazard. It needs to pass a larger flood which is, we call it the spillway design flood. In this particular case, it's half. Sorry, I see you. It is a very large flood which the spillway currently is not capable of passing. And the dry dam essentially would have, as we saw on the rendering, a river just upstream with no impoundment on the normal condition. It restricts the flow as well on the flood condition, and therefore the water rises when you have a flood, but decrease rapidly after the passage of a flood. Does that make sense?
Maybe to others, not
So, generally, with an earth embankment dam, the embankment is filling a valley. Like there's a valley, and you build an embankment across that valley, and you've got to be able to pass the water. So, as the dam is being constructed, you assemble a concrete spillway, as we call it. So the embankment height might be this high, all the way across the valley, but the spillway elevation will be several feet lower than the top of the dam. That's where the relief is for the water to flow through the dam, so it doesn't overtop and damage the dam. Does that help? So it's like a rectangular shaped concrete structure that's placed into the dam so the water can safely pass through rather than going over the top of the embankment. And then the other condition that you were asking about, the dry dam, that's where we plan to, if there's universal agreement for this approach, we would remove the spillway, the concrete structure that I'm talking about that's placed in the embankment. That structure would be moved out down to the foundation of the dam, which would coincide with the river channel elevation. So if you have the dam here, and the river meandering down, it would just pass through that opening in the dam. There would be no more spillway. It would just be the river flowing through that opening. But what that does, it serves two purposes. It allows the normal flow just to gently flow through that opening. The opening being right here. But when you have a significant rainfall event and lots of water coming into the impoundment, the sizing of this opening causes water to store behind the dam temporarily. So when it rains like heck, the water's coming in quickly, it can't get through this opening fast enough, and the water will rise as water continues to discharge through here. When the rain stops and the flows recede, the water level will come back down to the river level, and things will be tranquil and calm after the storm. Does that help put things in perspective?
Yes, I have a question. South Florida. I want to know, did you contact Hollingsworth and Moses about breaching the dam and drawing down the pond? I mean, they're going to be severely impacted, wouldn't they?
We don't think that's going to be a severe impact, but at some point we will communicate with them to keep them informed. We're trying to size things so we don't make matters worse. We're trying to limit the impacts downstream through the project.
Patrick Fastenal. A simple question. When's the last time we had a 500-year-old storm? And that's important to know that, because the scenario you have set up there, that could be a big problem.
I think we've been lucky that we haven't experienced that in my time.
We haven't experienced it here in Walpole, but just last summer in Leominster, we had a 1,000-year storm in a locality. And earlier this summer, we had a 1,000-year storm in northern Vermont. We have nationwide 6 to 8.
This happened in Carolinas.
6 to 8,000-year storms occur across the United States every year. So it's just a question of where the storm sets up and how the weather event occurs. So it's hard to say when that might occur, but it does happen.
Dam safety is required by statute and regulation to plan for severe events, because they do happen. As infrequent as they are, they do happen, and they can be adversely impactful to those located downstream from the dam.
Excuse me, sir.
I wanted to try to get a couple of
I
other
just
people.
answered his question.
My name is Gary Riggett, and I'm on the Trails Committee and the Town Forest Committee in town. And so I'm confused. At the beginning of the presentation, you showed 2 different dams, both on the Neponset, but they're separated by at least a quarter of a mile. So the first one you showed retains what around here we call the Plimpton Pond. And then, so you showed a building where you put a fence around it. That's an old powerhouse, my understanding. So the Bird family and the Clintons were industrialists around here. They generated their own electricity for their own domestic use at that dam. And then later on, you showed the Bird, what we call the Bird Dam, that retains the Bird Pond, which is close to Washington Street. So which Bird Pond is going to get removed? Which Bird Dam?
It's the I think all the pictures were of our project site,
As far as we
you
know,
may be
they're all
misinterpreting
over
the view.
There's two minutes, they're mixed.
The fence that we put up, we put around the spillway structure, because kids were playing around the spillway and getting into the spillway, that's at Bird Pond Dam. So this is the dam that's just off Washington Street
That's
at
what we call
the Hogan
Right.
property. So everything about this presentation,
That,
Wait,
oh,
yeah,
that- this next one.
Yeah, that's
That
upstream.
retains Plimpton Pond. Which is
No,
part of
It may look similar, but it's the photo was taken at Bird Pond, yeah.
Oh, my bad.
Thank you. My name is David Wiltnow. You were talking about high hazard, and you showed two locations, one of which was on top of the dam, and number two was just at the foot of the embankment in the parking lot behind one of the Hogan buildings there. Is there no hazard to any properties downstream of, say, Washington Street? And also, if maybe you could comment, please. It seems that the options are extremely limited by the capacity of the culvert underneath the building, which is also where the hazard has been identified. I don't know if that's a meaningful observation, but is there any hazard other than what you mentioned? And what if that culvert could be opened up and expanded?
we have mapped the impact zone for failure of this dam. We should have brought that with us to show the extent, but it does extend further downstream. And with respect to the culvert underneath the buildings, that would be nearly impossible unless your budget was limitless to accomplish resizing that culvert. We don't think that's feasible to even look at. Was there another component to your question? No.
Jim DeBrio. Question, so you say these properties of these dams have been abandoned. What is, I guess, what is the significance that finding out who the owner is? Is there any reason behind it? Or find out who the owners of the property were? You said, because you said there's no record of, people don't exist. When I first saw the article in the paper and stuff like that, at the meeting, I did like a quick 5-minute look up on Google. Okay, the town assistance database had the owner list in the Meldad. Did a cross search, ended up with, Meldad down Rhode Island. Okay, did a search in Rhode Island and basically showed up the address with a mailbox type, etc. type place. Now, does anybody, like I said, think about tracking down who this person is, or the family that owns the property? And again, what would be the significance of finding the person? Are they going to put the bill, or the town? So I assume the town's going to take it by eminent domain, or want to take ownership of the dam?
We cannot find Lloyd Marded. We don't think he exists. And I know what address you're talking about. It's a UPS store, I think, that was given as his residence. And that, we looked into that and it turned up nothing.
You can't go to the records of the UPS store and find out who, what the address was?
I don't think
You
he
can do a
lived
further
at,
search.
it was a commercial establishment. I think it was not a legitimate address, or he lived there prior to UPS coming in and he just disappeared. We cannot find him. We've searched.
Is that separate stopped at that point there? You couldn't find him after the mailbox place? I'm just, like I said, I'm just curious.
We were looking at this 25 years ago, and we've been off and on trying to figure out where this guy is or if he ever existed, and we really do not think he ever existed.
Okay. But again, if you did find him, is what, I guess, is there a significance of mine? Is he going to put the bill, or?
That's, the public safety concerns outweigh the concern about trying to find, at this point, somebody who might you know, I think we could conduct all kinds of enforcement and we wouldn't get anything out of anybody who's.
Yeah, because you're not gonna get $4 million out of the
No.
guy. Yeah.
So there's a higher calling here, it's public safety.
Yep.
And we move beyond trying to find
And will-
this apparent
So the
vulnerability.
town will take ownership of the property?
I can't speak for what the town will decide, but we come into town looking for cooperation, and that's not been concluded yet. So we'd like the community to make the decision on the final option, and then it's up to DCR and the community to negotiate who does what thereafter. But we're not here to tell anybody what to do.
Okay. But I guess it goes back to the bill. Who's footing the bill for it?
That's all in the Commonwealth.
It's all in common.
We feel strongly enough about this issue that the Commonwealth is gonna fund this project. Good, thank you.
Susan Lawson, just a quick response to your question. I think it's pretty clear, at least to me, that whoever owned this property fraudulently transferred it in such a way that they would never be associated with the property. I'm very confident that this was a deliberate attempt to divest oneself of the responsibility for maintaining the dam. My question is this, two questions. One, what is the difference between a spillway and a culvert, number one? And my second question is, I understand the idea of having a dry dam. What happens to the existing dam structure? Does that remain, or is that?
The existing dam structure is gonna get repaired, extensively repaired.
And will remain?
So it still has to perform as a dam under storm conditions when the water rises behind the dam during those events.
But there'll be a dry dam in addition?
No, the dam will become dry again post-storm. The water will drain out through the opening in the dam, and it will just go back to the river channel.
Okay, but right now, there's like a physical structure.
Right now, there's a concrete structure
Yep,
in here, and that has concrete sidewalls
right.
and a floor, and that floor is lower than the top of the embankment.
So,
So that's what the water spills through.
right, but my question is, the picture that had the grassy slope, which as I understand it is what a dry dam is?
Right.
Yes. So that will be in addition to the concrete structure?
The current structure will be modified to
Okay.
look like this.
I got you, okay, I understand now. And the difference between a spillway and a culvert?
The spillway structure is in the dam up here, and it's an open cut in the embankment to allow the water to pass through. The culvert that we're referring to is underneath the mixed-use building facility downstream, immediately downstream from the dam. So that's a culvert that's probably rectangular shaped, where the river actually will flow into and go under the buildings, resurface, and go through the Washington Street culvert into the next impoundment owned by Hollingsworth and Bowes.
Thank you.
If we're following the proposal here, will the lowland area adjacent to the river, will that, when it gets flooded, does that mean it's gonna get flooded like every time it rains, or is this only if there's a large event? In other words, can you use this for some activities, walking trails or something like that?
I think like 90+% of the time, it's gonna look like that until it rains some amount, and those varying amounts will dictate how deep the water gets. So it's gonna be relatively rare events that the entire area floods. That would be a very extreme event.
How wide is the future view?
How wide is the what?
Future view,
Of the river?
yes.
About six, well, again, this is really just conceptual, but about 60 feet.
And what is it now?
Oh, I don't know how wide it is now.
The
Probably
town is
over
about 400 feet
across,
at the max. It gets shallow
right.
real quickly.
Yes, at the time.
questions? Sorry.
No, Kristen, okay. Hi, my name's Mark Manzar. So where, do you have a proposal for where the flow of the new river would go around those buildings? Because there, I mean, there's parking lots, there's lots of cars, there's businesses in there, so.
It's gonna go exactly where it goes now, under all conditions. We can't push more flow through than its current capacity. So under flood events, the parking lot may occasionally flood. And
But isn't that the limitation of the flow as it stands now? It's the size of the culvert. If you don't increase the culvert, then no flow can be increased.
well, depending upon how you configure the dam, that has an impact on how severe the flooding events would be in the parking area and other areas downstream. With the beauty of the dry dam is it buffers a significant portion of a very extreme event and retains or retards the water, just like the Allen Dam does in town. It would be buffering the flow that goes downstream.
So you'd still allow the water to flood the parking lot and the buildings?
That would be expected under certain flow conditions.
It sounds to me like the flow is really limited by the size of the culvert under the buildings, not necessarily opening to it. But
Well, you can only get so much through the culvert, and then it's overwhelmed.
Right. So what's the improvement then? If the flow is controlled by the size of the culvert, and even if you blow a big one open in the dam to allow the river to flow through it, it's still going to go through that culvert, right?
Well, that's what this chart is trying to get at, that those three conditions have different results, different depths of water and velocities in that immediate area downstream.
And you can see, again, by removing the spillway, and look, that essentially is going to lower the water elevation. That will change the dynamics of how the water flows. So again, under existing conditions, under a 500-year flood, you would see 1.3 feet of water on top of the dam. If the spillway is removed, under a 500-year flood, the dam will not overtop. So water will build up upstream of it, but water will not go over the top. Limited by my group.
Thank you. Gentlemen, with all respect, Bill, I don't believe you answered this man's question about a 500 or 100-year flood. Must you forget the flood of 1955 when Cliftonville Dam, the water was running over the top, Chanter was flooded to the brim, and this place is hell.
Good point. We just chose to mention some more recent events that might be more on people's minds.
Well, if
That's
you
a
don't
good
look
point.
back into the past, how are you going to go to the future? Huh?
Well, that event is why the Allen Dam was built in town. You're right.
You got your answer this time? Thank you.
Settle down, Joe. Evening, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of you might know me. My name is Kenneth Southwood. I host a Facebook page called Walpole Waters here in Walpole, and for the past 5-6 years, it's been concerned with the Neponset River. Great questions all around, absolutely. Going back to Gary Riggett with the Trails Committee, the dam upstream, the hydroelectric dam upstream, absolutely should be incorporated into what we do downstream, because if that dam was to fail, what we do here, what we do at the Bird Dam isn't gonna matter, because all that water is coming downstream. As far as the culvert under the Hogan Family Trust property, and this relates to the owner of the dam, that's a massive expense in repair that landowners have faced over the last 30 years, that regulation has made it almost impossible for any of these landowners to actually be able to repair or do something with without facing years of adversity and extensive expense. Landowners downstream in East Walpole face pretty big flood insurance bills because of this dam. This is, right here it shows the numbers. Whether we break it open or we retain the water that's there, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference. Now, they show that if we create a spillway, like they have with the green area, one example of how that's been, and this is, I greatly appreciate DCR coming in, being involved in this, because Walpole has a great tradition of growing on the Neponset River and the energy our river created. We're here because of the Neponset River.
Amen.
Now, they came in and they mitigated the asbestos that's upriver behind the Epiphany Church from the Kendall factory and from the police station. I can tell you this right here will become a swamp, and the proof is in the Epiphany Church, where the pond is no longer behind the Epiphany Church. There's no activities for the Epiphany Church field day. And the river, sometimes it's 6 feet wide, sometimes it's this wide. So the Allen Dam was built after the flood in 1953, where the intersection of 27 was completely flooded. The Allen Dam has been recently taken back by the federal government due to lack of maintenance, because the town took possession of that Allen Dam after it was built, and proper maintenance was never done by the town of Walpole. The federal government has since stepped in and taken possession of it because of the lack of maintenance. So we're kind of at a catch-22 here, along with the environmental protectionists and the fish people. The town of Walpole doesn't have a good track record of taking care of the dams. The Neponset Dam in the town forest behind the high school, that has seen no work in almost 20 years. The Turner Pond Dam, where the federal government came in and said, okay, you have to do this now and pay the bill because you didn't do any maintenance to it. We're at a catch-22, and I vote that my encouragement over the coming years, because this is going to take a couple of years and a lot of study, but my encouragement is we also work with the landowners, even though we don't know who owns the dam. I'd buy the dam if somebody would let me buy it. I'd buy it tomorrow for $1. I'd buy it in a heartbeat. But then is somebody going to back me up with the regulations to do the right thing with it? Is the question. So this is a very difficult situation with the history in the Neponset River. The conflict that landowners face, especially small business landowners, I know the Hogan family has been invested in that piece of property for the last 30 years. And they've also invested a lot into insurance policies, regulations, protections. For them to fix that spillway, which would be the ultimate mitigation, the state's not going to come in and say, we'll help you pay for that, we'll fix the problem up here. But we need the state to come in and say, we'll fix the channel underneath. As far as Hollingsworth and Bowes, if you notice every couple of years, out along Washington Street, that's drained completely dry, because Hollingsworth and Bowes has an important dam vital to their business. So they drain it down, and they do the maintenance needed as a private company. They do the maintenance needed to support their business. They have those resources and they can do it. Walpole has never invested those resources in maintaining our dams and maintaining, I'll just say it, Memorial Pond. There it is right there, walk across the street. We're not maintaining anything in this town. So over the next couple of years and in the comment period, it's worth a really deep look at how this gets handled. When that goes down to 6 feet, that's going to be a swamp, that's going to be mosquito infested, and we also have the problem of the hydroelectric dam that's upstream at Plimpton Stream, that if that bursts, all this effort is for naught. Thank you very much. I'm here for the landowners, the property owners in the town of Walpole.
That hydroelectric dam has gone down though. I mean, there's no water.
It's still
but-
there.
Huh?
Still there,
Well, yeah, I know, I understand that, but there's no water behind it.
still there.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Debbie Driscoll, and my question is this. I think that you said if this does go through, that it would be regulated as land underwater in floodplain. Is that correct?
Yes, and riverfront.
Okay. So how would that impact, for instance, the proposed development along the river? Or does the development start and then things, how does that work?
I would just have to say I don't know enough about the development along the river to comment.
Yeah, we can't speak to anything adjacent to the project. We're here for the dam and mitigating the risk that that dam poses to downstream interests.
Okay, so in worst case scenario, if the dam did fail, does that mean like it would take apart that brick building? Like, what's the worst case scenario? It's gonna flood under there and...
Failure of the dam could have devastating results.
Like, the building's gonna collapse.
Take out half the South Norwood essentially, if that dam failed, South Norwood flooded.
I'm not, I was just wondering. That's the way
Well,
to
I guess we should have brought our emergency action plan to show the extent of flooding. Flooding would be extensive. It could cause structural damage to infrastructure and buildings in the path of the flood. It could possibly impact the Washington Street Bridge and operations at the next dam downstream.
Maybe that tower would fall over.
My name's Barry Whaler. I'm at Riverwalk. I just had a few questions regarding this. People are saying if this goes through, my understanding is that the town has the absolute option of taking responsibility for the dam. Is that correct?
That's something
parts-
that's unknown right now. We would be negotiating with the town a resolution to who will be doing what. The certainty is that whatever the option is that's selected, the Commonwealth is going to take that burden off anyone else's hands.
Cost.
The Commonwealth will design, permit, and construct whatever option is selected collectively between the community and DCR.
Including repairing the dam.
That's
one of the
correct.
options.
That's
Okay.
correct.
So I'm concerned about that area that's being shown up there. How long will it take to vegetate? What type of maintenance will it need? Will it be a swamp every time there's a moderate rain event?
Yeah.
So,
Bill, do you want me to?
Jen, yeah, I think you were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, so again, we're really still at the conceptual stage, but based on, and my background is in wetland science, I'm a professional wetland scientist, and having looked at what the proposed water elevations would be under most circumstances, I don't think the hydrology would be sufficient to support a BVW, bordering vegetated wetland. The water elevation would be many feet below the adjacent area, so I don't think it would be a swamp. I don't think it'll be wet enough to support wetland plants all year round. It'll be a more unusual event when it holds water. That's my profession, and again, this is just our initial look at it. It would have to go all the way through design, but based on my background as a wetland scientist, I don't think it would be quote-unquote wetland. It could be a really nice habitat area. In answer to the question, how fast would it revegetate? Again, like Bill said, everything's still sort of open for negotiation. Obviously, it's privately owned, so we would have to work with the owner for a construction easement and what would ultimately be done. But I think ideally we would do some planting. It's not really desirable just to leave an unvegetated area open to whatever plants want to come in. If we do that, we're most likely not going to get the plants we want to be there. So a better approach would be to do some proactive planting to create some valuable wildlife habitat.
Hi, my name is Pete DePasca from Walpole. I have one question and comments. What would be the ongoing operations and maintenance costs for the dam if it were to be repaired? I believe there's an inspection that's required every, I think, 5 or 10 years?
Two.
Depending on the hazard class?
Right, it's high hazard potential, so the inspection frequency would be 2 years.
Every 2 years. And typically, what would that inspection cost? And the reason why I'm asking that is that if the town were to take over the dam, what would their costs be?
To inspect the dam, I'm guessing somewhere around $7,000 to $8,000 annually, and
Every 2 years. Every
I'm
2
sorry,
years.
every two, semi-annually.
Okay.
And the maintenance, when our project is complete, we're going to do the best we can to leave a dam that's pretty easy to maintain, which means mowing the grass, maybe string cutting the grass, and keeping woody growth out of any stone riprap sections that are left behind on the dam. So not a heavy lift, but there are costs that need to be considered.
I'm a resident of Walpole, but I used to be the environmental compliance manager for Hollingsworth and Bose, and one of my responsibilities was maintaining the dam at Hollingsworth and Bose. I encourage you to contact Hollingsworth and Bose because I feel you may be impacting both the quantity and the quality of the water. And Hollingsworth and Bose uses the water from the deposit in their manufacturing process. You may be increasing the suspended solids concentration in the water, which would increase their water purification costs. You may be decreasing the water volume at certain times. And then you need to look further downstream. Further downstream, there's the Certainty plant. I don't think you'll have much of an impact there. Then the Norwood Space Center. I think you're okay there. Further down is the Dedham Westwood Water District. And their water supply depends on the flow in the Neponset River. And I can tell you that when we had to decrease the flow going through the Hollingsworth and Bose Dam for repairs, if we decreased the flow too much, we would get a nasty call from Dedham and Westwood and saying, what are you doing to the water supply? So there's a lot of downstream impacts you need to look at. So I would encourage you to look much further downstream than you think you need to.
Thank you.
One quick question. So there's a lot of property around the lake. I am Mark Nazar. I live in that area. There's a lot of properties around that pond. Has any thought been given into what the impact on property values may be if the pond goes away?
No, we're just looking at our purpose is to reduce the risk to downstream interests.
Okay.
That's,
Thank you.
thank you.
I think I have my eyes on you.
If I remember, your hand was in the air.
Sean McCanty, Neponset River Watershed Association. I have two kind of questions. The first is, you mentioned 15 sediment samples being done. Is there a plan for more extensive sediment testing as the design progresses? And then the second question is, in terms of recreation, is there a sense of how deep the channel will be? Would it be canoeable, kayakable, etc.?
I can answer those questions. We, right now, don't envision doing additional sediment sampling based on the advice of the LSP, who has reviewed, who oversaw the sampling we did so far. Based on the results we have to date, we don't feel like there's a need to do additional sampling. If there were sediment that had to be moved off-site during construction, of course, that would have to be sampled when it went off-site. We may do some additional sediment testing if needed for from more of a geotechnical perspective to get an idea of what the strengths of the soils are and how they would affect the restoration of the stream channel. In terms of how deep it is, again, I do want to emphasize that everything we're saying tonight is very conceptual, but right now we're thinking it would be about, I think it's about 4 feet deep, right? About 60 feet wide, and on most days. Yeah.
Hi, thanks. Carrie Snyder with the Neponset River Watershed Association, and we have been spearheading a project with Walpole and all of the other towns in the Neponset River Watershed to develop a region-wide flood model. What we've concluded is that we really need to find flood storage in a lot of different places. And so I was wondering if this could be designed and actively managed to hold a significant amount of water.
Yeah, I think that's something we could probably talk about. Again, it depends, again, it's privately owned. We've got to talk to the town, but that's certainly something that could be part of the discussion, depending on how the final grades are developed and balancing that with the goal for the habitat. But yeah, a good point.
Janet Fasanello. I was just wondering, is there going to be an impact to those that are using Bird Pond by that disappearing?
Not sure what you mean by using, but the impoundment will significantly decrease. As you said before, it's 400 feet wide. Now it's going to go down to about 60 feet wide, and it's not incredibly deep right now, but it will, I think it'll be harder to kayak down because it will be smaller. So
Used for anything now, the pond, or is it just
I don't think that anybody uses it for any sort of water source, if that's what you mean. For recreation? Yeah, I mean, there would probably, there would be, I guess the recreational, again, it's a private parcel, so I guess that's all I can say. It's privately owned right now, so I don't know who's using it for kayaking and how that interacts with the current owner's desires.
There is a public easement.
Oh, right, I'm sorry, thank you for, there is a public easement that the Neponset River Watershed Association has. Thank you for reminding us of that. So I don't know how that easement would change if there's less water in the future, or if it would still apply to the areas that aren't underwater.
Yes, it's not specific to water recreation.
Okay,
It's the entire
so it
easement.
would remain in effect. So there could be like a different kind of recreation perhaps. Maybe not as much kayaking, but maybe more walking and bird watching or something like that.
Hi, Henry Hogan. I own the property just below it. I'm a little confused with I'm familiar with the Allen Street Dam, the slow release out in the middle, but where this is at dam level, and you're saying you're gonna lower the dam down to actual river level now, as it goes into the cul-de-sac under our buildings. As a slow release, what's there to stop the water from building over that slow release? You know what I mean? When you look at the pictures, it shows a V.
Right.
Is there a backstop behind that
No.
V?
No.
So how does it stop it from going down to the parking lot?
I'll take a stab, and then Bill and JP can chime in. So, under normal non-rainy conditions, the water will just flow through the dam and go drop into the culvert like it does under your building, like it does now, and continue downstream. If there's a big storm, like Bill explained earlier, all of that water couldn't get through the spillway, so it would back up, and it doesn't overtop. It has to be more than if the spillway were removed, even for a 500-year storm, the water would not overtop the dam. So it would back up, and then as the storm recedes, it would slowly go through. Basically, that constriction, that opening the dam, is what would limit the water. The water can only get out as fast as that restriction will allow it to. Does that answer your question?
Not really. I understand the slow release on the Washington Street Dam, the Allen Dam.
Yeah,
Because it's in
I'm
the
not
middle,
familiar with that
The
dam.
water flows over all four sides and comes out at the bottom of the dam through a pipe. But how do they connect, how would you connect that overflow to the cul-de-sac going under?
He's talking about a riser structure that accepts the water, like
Yes.
Morning Glory style.
At this other dam?
And then there's
Yeah.
a pipe that sends it to
Yeah.
the foundation of the dam.
Yeah.
We don't have that incorporated.
No, so
So how do you achieve that control with our opening?
Yeah,
I
how
think
do we
that's,
back up?
I think that's what he's asking.
Yeah, I think the answer is just that the opening can only allow so much water through. So it just backs up. During normal condition, the water is just going to flow right through and flow under the culvert. Again, the culvert under your building can handle up to a 100-year storm. So up until a 100-year storm, the water is just flowing through the dam, flowing through the opening, flowing into the culvert under your building like it does right now.
Well, we had a foot of water in our parking lot last year, and it wasn't 100 years storm. If Moses doesn't release the water, it backs up. Our parking lot went underwater, the whole front of our building, between our building and Washington Street, all that lawn went underwater.
Like you just said, I believe, and Jake, you can correct me if I'm wrong, there is an effect from the Washington Street Bridge backing up the water. So this project wouldn't change it because that's not what, this project isn't addressing the Washington Street Bridge constriction and how that affects water backing up.
So it shouldn't affect the impacts that are currently potentially going to occur, except if you remove the storage from the dam, you're not going into a serious rain event with a full impoundment. So you've got removing the impoundment provides a buffering effect, so interests downstream are better protected without going into a storm event with a full pool.
Right.
You're at a dry pool, so there's time for that water to build up behind the dam with the opening in it. Whereas if you're starting with it full, there's not a lot of freeboard. That's the amount of embankment that's remaining before you overtop. So it's a much safer condition.
Yeah, it's essentially creating flood storage upstream of the dam that doesn't exist now, like Bill just said. So at the start of the storm, there's more area where floodwater can be stored.
Which results in less of an impact to downstream interests.
So that's why with the spillway removal under future condition, under the 500-year storm, water would not go over the top of the dam. Whereas right now, it would.
But you still have a problem with your undersized culvert under the building that will only
Yes.
pass a 100-year storm, and that's why the parking lot will back up from time to time.
Yeah, but is that culvert going under our building gonna connect directly to that dam? That spillway? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it will the same way it does now.
Yeah.
Yeah, same way it does now.
Will the river be at culvert height, or will it be at the same height and have a 9-foot drop like it does now?
It will be way below,
Will it be culvert height?
Spillway.
Yes.
Spillway?
I'm not sure how is the culvert lower elevation than the spillway?
Yeah, the culvert is significantly lower.
Oh.
And so it would, at the location of the spillway, the water will be about 10 feet lower, maybe 9 feet lower, something like that. And so it will go directly into the culvert under the building.
Hi, my name is Carl Waller, and about Riverwalk. Question regarding the newly created land that's privately owned upstream from the dam. Will that be buildable?
It's going to be subject to flooding, so I do not think so.
What about the possibility for 40B going in there, being able to get around certain zoning and other things if it becomes buildable dry land or privately held?
With respect to the, okay, so can you put that, go back a couple, there was a shot of the whole pond.
Oh. This one?
Yes, that one. So that's today's condition. When we lower the water level, you're going to be, can you pop to the stream channel? That's going to be the normal condition until it rains significantly. And then that area will temporarily refill and then slowly drain. So I don't think it would be compatible to have any development in that zone because it would be subject to flooding.
And also, just to point out, this figure shows the resource area is just something to keep in mind. So like this yellow line is, again, very approximately what we're thinking the future limit of the floodplain will be. So like Bill just said, in this whole area, this would be subject to flooding. So that's a consideration, you know, dealing with FEMA requirements in the floodplain. And then this green line shows the future 200-foot riverfront area. So the Wetland Protection Act regulations do have restraints on what you can do in the riverfront area.
I guess the concern is 40B allows latitude to put density in there that can allow builders to overcome those challenges with things such as on elevation like they do on waterfront areas on the Cape.
Yeah, that I can't comment on without knowing all the details of the project, but I just wanted to point out with the, you know, there are wetland resource areas there still.
Any more questions?
I don't even make you walk.
It's okay. Thanks.
Hi, Jennifer Trevillio, Hollingsworth and Rose. It's a lot to take in, and I know that October 1st is the date in which we need public comment. I really do think that we have the best interest downstream risk being minded here, but I'm also have my operations hat on and thinking about the construction and how that might impact us. In terms of like next steps and decision making, what are they? When, you know, what happens after this meeting and what happens after October 1st public comments have been received?
I think we need to carefully review the input we received tonight. We have an upcoming meeting with the select board, and we're going to be talking about more public forums like this, I would imagine. I don't know that any such forums are scheduled yet, but that will be upcoming. We're not coming in saying that these are our plans and this is the way it's going to be. We're doing it much more inclusively, purposely. That's how we approach these projects. So there'll be plenty of opportunity to opine on what direction we're going in, or think we're going, cooperatively, with everyone, in theory. Any additional questions?
Hi, I'm Jim Muller. Has there been any indication of the effect on existing fish and wildlife that are in that area now? Has anything been done? Do we have no idea what it would do?
We have not.
That'll come up during the
proceeded with that evaluation, yeah. It'll come up during the major review and depending on how we move forward.
And the endangered species review too.
Thank you for
Okay, all right, I think we're at the conclusion, so thanks everyone for coming tonight. Looking forward to further collaboration.